Sodom?
Yep, Sodom. Sodom is the way to say it. So the notes tell El-Hammam finding Sodom or something. Yeah, you want to end up here. That says finding Sodom, and this says tell El-Hammam, which is where they think they found Sodom. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, you better get ready. We're talking about atomic bombs and bone fragments and skulls and
Yes!
it's a great story. World Wars, ancient world wars. All right.
Woo!
So we're going to start with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. There's 3 particular stories that the city of Sodom touches. The whole goal here is to look at some of the clues in these stories as far as where Sodom might be found. So Lot goes to Sodom is the first story. It's in Genesis chapter 13. And I'm going to read a portion of it. This is in your notes. You guys can fill some of this out. Then Abraham said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me." Apparently there was strife. "And between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me." So, hey, look, our kinsmen our herdsmen are fighting a lot. So you take yours and go that way, and I'll take mine and go this way. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. And if you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Which means they were traveling east and west. Now, they said this while they were overlooking this giant valley. And that's seen in the next slide. Lot lifted up his eyes and saw, right there, right where they were talking, the Jordan Valley. Now, a bunch of clues here, which was well-watered everywhere. So we're looking in the Jordan Valley for Sodom. We're looking at a place that's well-watered everywhere, like the Garden of the Lord, and that looks kind of like the land of Egypt, and is by this city called Zoar. Zoar. Well, where's Zoar? Hey, guess what? We actually found an ancient map that has the name of the city Zoar and where it was located. That's going to help us. Go ahead, Vinny. And this is before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, which suggests that after the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, this whole area didn't look like this anymore. It looked very different. So where were they standing when they said this? Well, they were standing right here at a place called Bethel, right next to Ai. Some of these words might ring a bell if you guys have read a bunch of your Bible, and especially the book of Genesis. And they were looking at this whole valley. You see this river coming down? Anybody know just what this river is? Right by Jericho? Very famous river. There's really only one big river in Israel. Do you?
The Jordan River?
The Jordan River. And this whole valley. See, these are mountains here. Mountains here. This is the Jordan River Valley. And you'll notice that the Jordan River Valley gets wider at the bottom. It's very important because it's in the shape of a disc. So they're looking down here into this area when they said that. So Sodom is somewhere in there, in that circle. Yes, Mari.
Can you go back to the last slide?
So if you guys missed something, then you'll have to just wait till the end. You can stay after real quick because I need to move fast. I haven't had to kind of move fast throughout this. So those are the 4 right there. Zoar. I don't have many that actually have 4 words, so you won't have that much trouble. Yes, Wrigley?
So when they were looking over Zoar or
Over the Jordan River Valley?
were they on top of high mountain to see all that?
Yes. You see, the way Israel is shaped is there's a giant valley on the side, on the eastern side, which is the Jordan River Valley. Somewhere at the top of this Jordan River is the Sea of Galilee, but I cut it off the map. Okay, it runs down all the way into this, which is called the Dead Sea. And then, as soon as you travel west toward this is the Mediterranean Sea, you hit the hill country. This is what it's called, the hill country.
Okay.
And Jerusalem, which is where Jesus died, that's the hill country. People traveled to Jerusalem down the Jordan Valley, even in Jesus' day, and then up the ravines. Jericho's here. This is where they would have crossed over, Joshua with the army. And the first city they came to is Jericho. And what happened to Jericho? Joshua toppled the walls of Jericho. And so they were here in this area, up on the mountains, looking down over this valley. Which is why I have this picture. You guys see this picture? They would have been looking down over the Jordan River Valley. Yeah, Kate. That's a good question. A lot of people think a lot of things about the Dead Sea and its salt. I'm not actually sure what the theories are for how the Dead Sea got so much salt. So I'd love to look it up. So Lot chose for himself all the Jordan Valley, and Lot journeyed east. Thus they separated from each other. Abraham settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the valley. Now this word valley right here is actually a very special word. It says he even moved his tent as far as Sodom. So he's in the place called the Kikar. That word Kikar is the word valley in this sentence. Now that word Kikar actually means disc or disc-shaped plain, which is exactly what we have here. Okay, so we're looking for our Sodom somewhere right here. Notice he traveled as far as Sodom, which means we're thinking that Sodom is somewhere on the far side of this disc area right here, like somewhere over here, which is exactly what we're going to find. Now, Sodom goes to war. Check this out. There were 4 kings in the northern area of the land right next to the Mediterranean Sea. There their names all are in the days of Amraphel, Arioch, Shedalamer, and Tidal. These kings made war. You guys write that down? Made war with the kings of the south. There were 5 of them. King of Sodom, king of Gomorrah, king of Admah, king of Zeboim, and the king of Zoar. And all these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. And so it was already salty back then. How did it get salty at that point? I don't know, but it was already salty. At least this is a commentary. Maybe it was salty later, and this was added in to clarify for future readers what they're talking about. So it actually doesn't verify that it was already salty. But the Salt Sea is a very famous place. It's called the Dead Sea. It's right down here. See, this is Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea. And it is supposed then that Sodom and Gomorrah are here, and the kings of the north follow the red track. They come around here. This is all well verified and written down, their whole journey in Genesis chapter 14. Then they clash right here, somewhere around where Sodom and Gomorrah were, right at the north end of the Dead Sea. There's another clue as to where they clashed. It says here, now the valley of Siddim, that's where they had their war, their battle, was full of bitumen pits, that is like tar pits. And as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them. So Sodom and Gomorrah fled. Sodom lost the fight. And therefore, who's living in Sodom now that Abraham cares for so much? You guys remember? In the previous chapter, Cade? Lot, his nephew. So here they are. This is the beach that I was talking about on the northwestern side of the Dead Sea. A perfect place for a giant battle. Big old valley. And guess what is still there to this day? Pits. There are signs everywhere in this whole area. Watch out for sinkholes. So bitumen pits are like pits that are naturally forming. And people would and could fall into them, full of all sorts of sulfur and chemicals because of the salination of the sea. So could you imagine right here an army running across this beach, and suddenly this whole pit falls beneath them? That's how a sinkhole works. You're like walking, and all of a sudden, just the land gives out beneath you. There's just a big old open space that just sinks.
So do you just die?
You just die. In the words of Mr. Dean, sometimes you just die. Mr. Dean told one of my kids that, and one of us was watching him. Yes?
So there's the skeletons in it?
Well, most skeletons do not remain in situations like that. Skeletons only fossilize if there's a sudden...
Wait, which one is that?
We don't have that. We don't have that.
No, you don't have all of them. You don't have all of them. Things I don't want you to write down or focus on, I'm just kind of telling the story. So you can just keep your eyes, and then you'll be able to see because there's circles when you actually have one. So Lot gets robbed, okay, and he goes up north with these kings of the north. And did you guys know Abraham was actually a warlord? He's got this sort of like nice shepherdy vibe in all the books we read and stuff, right? He actually has a trained force of 318 men who he's able to suddenly just rally up and go and take on all the kings of the north that just beat Sodom and Gomorrah. And he takes them, and he takes Lot back, and he takes back all the possessions that they stole. This is Abraham's campaign right here, yellow, running up the side of the Jordan Valley, clashing up here somewhere above Damascus, and then coming back down. And as he passed by, the king of Sodom says, "Hey, thanks for getting our stuff back. Let me pay you." And Abraham says, "No, only what we've eaten and the share of the men who went with me." And there's a third story about Sodom that's going to give us a lot of clues as to where it's located. This is the famous one. 2 angels come down into Sodom in the evening. This one you do have. And there's Lot sitting in the gate. That is, he's sitting in between the pieces or the big stone pillars of the gate. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth. He invites them. These are angels, but they look like men. He invites them into his house to stay the night. They say, no, we're going to stay out in the city square. It's okay. It's a safe place, right? And Lot says, no, you're going to want to stay with me. This place is rowdy. All right, so before they lay down, the men of the city, this is how rowdy it is. They all hear, 2 men are visiting. And so the men of Sodom, both young and old, they gather at the door and they say, "Where are the men who came out to you tonight? Bring them to us." Hello? Yes, you can. I'll send it right now. Ooh, which lucky girl gets to go home early? I think she already knows. Pack it up. Anna. All right, so here we have a riot in front of the house. They want to take these guys and just beat them up. And it gets worse. They have all sorts of all sorts of evil in mind. And so the angels say, "Man, this is bad." They strike these guys with blindness. So you guys see here the blindness. He's walking around blind. They just strike him blind. You can imagine the whole crowd walking around blind. And as the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept up in the punishment of the city." Write down punishment. Punishment of the city. All right, so there they are fleeing away. They're obeying, and as they flee away, you can see in the background there the artistic rendition of fire falling from heaven. But I have a better picture. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur, which is, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know what sulfur actually is, but it's often associated with hot springs. You guys ever go to hot springs and you smell that horrible smell? Or if you go to Yellowstone and there's all sorts of smells like some bad gas, right? That's sulfur. Smells bad. Sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. So here we go. I got all sorts of pictures. Actually, you look up all sorts of pictures of this event on Google. There we go. We got one. There's one. That looks kind of nuts. Very destructive.
It looks like a wave's coming over him.
This is like an older one.
It's not bad. More realistic.
Seems more realistic. This is a modern AI one. There you go. It does look like AI, doesn't it?
How do you even
Because it is.
It wasn't very built up. It was the major city-state of the entire area in Sodom. So it was built up. It did have city walls and a big city gate. Yeah, Tyler.
Did anyone survive that?
Only 3 people. Lot and his 2 daughters.
Oh yeah,
Because his wife got turned into a pillar of salt. And why'd she get turned into a pillar of salt? Well, the angel said, "Run and don't look back." But Lot's wife apparently had some sort of a longing to go back to Sodom. So she looked back and she stopped running. And because she hesitated and she stopped running, I don't know how long she stood there and looked back. And I don't know, Lot just kept running. He was obeying the Lord. His daughters kept running. His wife got, and so why a pillar of salt? Why didn't she just get burned? Everybody else got burned? What's with the salt? We're going to find out. Yes, Brianna, what do you think?
Was it because she was by a Dead Sea?
I think the Dead Sea has something to do with it, of course, right? It's a salted sea. Yes?
Or maybe, like, because she wasn't meant to die, and it was because of her faith that she failed.
Well, it was definitely a failure to look back. That's what God's communicating here, right? And there's a lesson in this, like, hey, you are fleeing the judgment of God. Don't look back and long for the world that God's judging, right? Don't, like, feel pity and want to go back there. No, God's judging that world. Leave it behind. Run ahead. Yeah, Brisa.
Maybe it was because she disobeyed what they told her to do.
Also, I think possibly there. They told her to run away, and she didn't do it. So there she is, pillar of salt. If you go to Israel, you'll see a rock formation that kind of looks like a woman standing there, and it's by the Dead Sea, and they say, oh, look, there's Lot's wife. She's still there. But it's just a rock.
Or is it?
Where is it? And he looked down. So now we have Abraham. Now, Abraham is up on a mountain very far away in a place called Hebron. But on the mountains from the center of Israel there, he can see the Jordan River Valley and the Dead Sea. I've been there, and I've been on those hills, and I can see a huge portion of the Dead Sea and the Jordan River Valley. And as he looked, behold, smoke. He can see the whole land of the valley, and the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. And so we're going to find Sodom. We're going to find a place that is burned crazy. Okay? How hot did it have to get to burn the whole land? What are we talking about here? Why is fire falling from heaven? What scientifically could this have actually been? Well, the discovery story. All right. You guys write this down. Sodom right there. For many years, for about 100 years, in the 1900s, a lot of people thought Sodom was in the south side of the Dead Sea at this place called Bab Edra. And partially because it's across from Abraham's camp in Hebron, where he's able to look down and see the whole land. But he can also see up here as well. And so a lot of people went here for tours, and it's like, oh, this is Sodom, interesting, it's kind of small. Until this guy, Dr. Stephen Collins, was reading his Bible one day, and he had a realization. He's an archaeologist. Yeah, fire, furnace, all. All right, and here's what he found. There you go, nothing. That's your word for this page. And also north. I read through that text 4 times, and when I got to the end of it, I closed the Bible and said to myself, not only is there nothing in this text that would locate Sodom toward the south of the Dead Sea, everything clearly locates it to the north of the Dead Sea. And so this is the text he's reading right here, and we already read it, but let's look at it again. Where did Lot go? He went to the Jordan Valley on the north end, not on the south end. The Jordan Valley isn't on the south end. There's no Jordan River there. There it is twice, the Jordan Valley. He journeyed east, not south, but east straight down into the valley. They separated from each other, and Lot settled among the cities of the disk. That is the valley, the Jordan Valley, and moved his tent as far as Sodom. So we're expecting to look not south of the Dead Sea, but north of the Dead Sea. This is, remember, where Lot was looking down over. He would see in the valley on the far end a place called Sodom. So we're looking somewhere on the far end of this place called the Kikar, the disk, the valley. On the far end of it, guess what? Also, too, or guess what? I was about to say something else. Also, too, this is an ancient map showing no cities down in the south side of the Dead Sea. This is the south of the Dead Sea. Showing Zoar. This is Zoar. We found Zoar. Actually, Lot was supposed to run to Zoar. He decided against it, but he was supposed to run to Zoar at first. And then we see 2 city symbols right over here, but they don't have names because the names got cut off. Many people think these are the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is the Kikar right here, the bottom of the Jordan River. And there they are on the side. So we are looking somewhere over. There's Jericho right here. This is on your guys' thing. There's Jericho. We're looking across from Jericho somewhere on the far side of this giant disc of a plain called the Kikar. What?
You don't read anything?
No, you just move those little circles. You see the circles?
Oh.
You move the circles. Yeah, see, I prepped all this for you guys. So I circled Jericho just to orient us, right? Like we know about Jericho. And so we're looking somewhere over here, but guess what? Right over here, there is a spot that fits everything perfectly. And it's called El-Hammam. This giant hill. And we're going to talk about this hill. This is not a man-made hill. This is a giant pile of cities built upon cities, built upon cities, built upon cities, built upon cities, that reaches all the way back into BC 3000 and beyond. 5,000 years of cities built upon cities, built upon cities, built upon cities. And so, this has never been excavated archaeologically. And so Dr. Collins decided, I want to do it. So he started to do it. Daily life of excavation. Now, what is a tell or a tall? I keep saying that word tall El-Hammam. Well, tall is the Jordanian word for the same word tell. A tell, there are tells all over the ancient Near East, all over Israel. If you go on a tour of Israel, what a tell is, it's not a natural hill. It's a mountain of ancient cities built on each other. What would happen is you build a city and then it would get destroyed, an earthquake or a conquest or something, fire. And then someone would come 100 years later and find all these ruins and say, well, the stones are already here. There's already some walls that are built. We're going to rebuild this city. But the dirt would fill in a little bit and they'd fill it and so they'd go higher and they'd build the city up. Build some walls, it would get destroyed, knocked down. 100 years later, it would be a little higher. They'd come and they'd build it again. And pretty soon, over thousands of years, it's this hill. And as you dig down into the hill, you go back in time. You start finding things from the Roman era, which is the Hellenistic era, or the Persian era before that, or the Iron Age before that, or the Middle Bronze Age before that, or the Early Bronze Age before that, into ancient, let me say it like this, ancienter and ancienter times. This is the excavation going on at Tel El-Hammam. You see as they dig down where they start finding walls and wells or circles or something, sacrifice spots, houses, a temple. They actually did find a temple. So what's it like to dig? Well, it's dusty. You go all day, spend all day, and you're not just digging. Like, let's say we have David, or David's a strong young man, right? David, show us.
Yeah, David.
Yes.
David.
Now, if David takes that
Hey, I'll do it.
that muscular, I know you will. That's why I called on David. David takes that muscular frame and picks up a shovel or a pickaxe and just throws it at the dirt. Bam!
Yeah.
Guess what he ends up doing? He ends up breaking an ancient pot that's 3,000 years old.
David.
Because he wasn't doing it slowly and carefully. So you got to do it slowly and carefully. But the further and further you get down, see, this is 12 feet down. They found the Middle Bronze Age. That's the age of Abraham. The Middle Bronze Age. It's about 2,100 to 1,500 years before Jesus. 12 feet down. Now you can keep going further and go back in time.
Make a math great. Dang.
You guys right, Middle Bronze Age there. This is David's pot that he could have broken. So what happens? You start digging and you find some lady. I mean, can you imagine, like 3,000 years ago, she like ran out of her house, ran away from some enemy, left her pot there, just left it there. And then 3,000 years later, here comes David digging it up. Oh, I found this pot. Oh, that's where I left my pot. Man, that's been lost for a long time. So you start finding all sorts of pottery. Pottery's everywhere. They use pottery all the time. There's indications of how old it is by the pottery, but you also find something else. Bones. So we're going to talk about bones quite a bit more. But notice there's two important things about this particular bone. Notice that it's not at a burial site. It's in the middle of the city. There's a leg hanging out in the middle of the city. Why?
Because it's dead.
Because it exploded in a fiery furnace. We're going to see this is Sodom. But we're going to see that later. But check it out. Not found in a burial site, found in the destruction layer of the city. Wait a minute. Somebody's saying, Mr. Carver, there's a destruction layer at this archaeological site? Thank you. Yes. There you go. Yes, there's a destruction layer at this archaeological site, guys. As you work down, you find the late Bronze Age, and down into this era right here, there is a destruction layer. And what's it look like? Well, it looks like this. See this destruction layer? They're digging down, they don't find anything like this. All of a sudden, there's an entire layer all the way across this whole thing. It's up 12, 15 feet down in the dirt. It's turned into ash. It's got 2 feet, a whole layer all the way across the whole. Everywhere you dig, you go 12 feet down, you find the same layer, ash. And in this ash, you find all sorts of crazy things. You find bone fragments scattered around. You find diamondoids, which are carbon crystals, which only happen under high pressure, high heat. You find pottery melted, like clay melted, not just turned into glass. Okay, that's super high heat. And then you find, right above that layer, you find a whole layer where there's evidence. There's the destruction layer right there. Whole layer where there's evidence of inoccupation. No one lived there. So, if you're going to prove that this place is actually Sodom and Gomorrah, here's what you have to prove. Middle Bronze Age destruction must be followed by at least a few centuries of inoccupation. Those are your 2 words. You should find a place where destruction is followed by inoccupation. And that is exactly what you find here. Right around 1750 BC-ish, you find a destruction layer, and then you find nobody lives there for 600 years. No new buildings, just dirt, piling up upon dirt, just sediment, right? And then someone finally settles it in the Iron Age again. The Iron Age is the age of David. 400 years later, 600 years later, excuse me. Well, if something like that exists, wow, good evidence that that could be Sodom. Guess what? It exists, and it's called El-Hammam. Now, in the old days, this is what it looked like. Guys, the portion we're looking at, that big hill, that is only the upper level of the city. The whole place was massive. It had massive walls all the way around it. The upper level was only the palace and the government buildings. And guess what? Remember when I said it's important that it's well-watered everywhere? The ancient city of El-Hammam was well-watered everywhere with evidence of springs everywhere. Okay, so we're finding there is pretty good evidence that this place, El-Hammam, is actually Sodom. Well, let's talk about this destruction layer a little bit. See if we can figure out what actually happened. And maybe it's a volcano, or maybe it's an earthquake. Maybe something else happened. What caused this destruction? Well, let's talk about the extent of the destruction layer. Okay, write down extent. Here's El-Hammam. Here's the whole city. Did you know that this destruction layer is found here and all the way down here outside the city?
That's crazy.
So not only the city, but the entire place was lit up. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
What else do we find? Sheared walls. This is an artist's rendition of what it could have looked like before. This is what it looks like now. You see these walls, how they're flat and straight off the top? That doesn't happen unless there's some sort of massive reason, cataclysmic reason that it happens. A sheared wall. So sheared, that's your word for this page. You guys all write that down? Sheared walls. This is the explosion sequence. Here's like a wall, what it would have been, and the rubble gets piled up against it on the southwest side, and the wall gets sheared off, but not underneath here because of all this rubble here. And then the wall gets fallen, and then the rubble on the other side is from the wall and the explosion, and then the explosion sends dust and debris over the top of it, which is the blowover layer right here. And that's exactly what you see here. Here's the rubble, here's the wall, here's the blowover from the wall falling, and here's the blowover layer number 4. And the dark layer, which is the charcoal and ashes that came in the explosion. So this is a sign of the sequence of the explosion. They could even tell the direction of the explosion. It came from this direction and hit the whole place like this. How can you say, Mr. Carver, how can they tell the direction of the explosion? Somebody.
How can they tell? How can they tell the
Very good, thank you. Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, things like this. Potsherds, the same pot. They found evidence, and this is not just the only incident, it's just the only one I put in here. Of one pot, for example, they found pieces of this one pot here, 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 and here, across a 22 meter or 65 foot distance. You say, wow, what happened to spread out this pot? Well, an explosion of some kind obviously happened. But notice that the pot is found across different portions of what? Walls. Which means at the same time this pot was exploding this direction, so also the walls were exploding this direction. What direction? The northeast direction. I'm going to go through a bunch of things real quick, and I'm not going to talk about them too much. They found melted pottery that is melted to be even as, this is called trinitite. It only exists in very high temperatures. The soil and the pottery melts and becomes super glossy. And glass, high temperatures only can produce that. They found diamondoids in the soil, which are carbonated diamond structures at a microscopic level. They found melted salt. If a bomb exploded over the Dead Sea, what do you expect to find? Melted salt. Pretty hot to melt salt. In fact, they found salt all over this whole area in the soil, still to this day. This actually explains a lot about Lot's wife, because if the Dead Sea water exploded, then what would be raining down is the hot, vaporized water, which would be basically, if the water is vaporized, like evaporated, but the water of the Dead Sea explodes and then evaporates, what do you have falling all around? Salt, all the salt in the water covering everything. And that explains how Lot's wife could have been salted along with everything else. But that's not the only thing we find in the destruction layer. We find human remains, but not just human remains in full body form, like in a burial. We find pieces of bone. Look, bone scatter. All those circles there in the picture are scattered bones all over the destruction layer. Like people weren't even left in one piece. They were blown to bits. And their bones scattered. Bones of animals, bones of people. But you'll notice the bones. This is you guys see the skull here? Eye, nose. Okay. This is the skull from the top side. Notice that it's orange, kind of reddish. That's evidence that it exploded in a fiery hot cataclysmic event. Also, the orange here in the feet. So somebody's legs just got ripped off and thrown in whatever this event is. Notice the bone scatter. This is also in the destruction layer. This is a piece of bone right here. So you just find shattered bones everywhere. Guess what else you find in the bones? Melted glass. In the midst of an explosion, things were heated up so hot. You know how like sand turns into glass when you heat it up super high? So all the soil turned into glass and then was exploding, and the bone was exploding, and the glass infused into the bone. You also have salt melted salt fused to the bones. Okay, so this all really happened at this place, okay? What would explain this? Well, when compared with an atom bomb, and looking at all the microscopic, this is like El-Hammam, atom bomb, Hammam, atom bomb, Hammam, atom bomb. Notice, look, it all looks the same, which means conditions like these couldn't have been reached unless temperatures got up to over 21,632 degrees Fahrenheit, which is twice as hot as the surface of the sun. So what would have caused this city in the Middle Bronze Age, right when Abraham was alive, at 1750 BC, to heat up all of a sudden in a moment with such a kind of destruction that it heats up to more than 2 times the surface of the sun? Does a volcano do that? A volcano does not do this. The only thing they have found that meets every single qualification for this site is is a meteorite, basically. But a meteorite that never hit the ground because there's no crater. If a meteorite hits the ground, there's a crater, giant hole. Never hit the ground. So a meteoritic airburst, which means a meteorite basically flying into our atmosphere explodes over some piece of land and drops the power of multiple atomic bombs right down on that land. That's what a meteoritic airburst is. You say, Mr. Carver, has this ever happened before?
Has it ever happened?
Yes, in Russia. In 1908, it happened. Right here, a meteoritic airburst laid waste to this is full of trees, laid waste to this whole piece of land all of a sudden. It was the size of an airplane. See that over there? And this whole area was just exploded. 800 square miles, 80 million trees. Just exploded. Take that same size explosion and put it right over El-Hammam, and you have a giant meteoritic airburst, which actually means there's evidence that fire rained down from the sky. What's that mean? That the Bible is true. All right, you had a question, Jill? Don't turn it in. I'm going to have you guys do the last page on Wednesday. Okay? Tuesday. I'll postpone it. I'll push it back. Yes, Jill.
What about global warming?
What about global warming? How does that have anything to do with this?
Yeah, I was just...
You can turn that off. What's global